heroes.
There's a saying in Nashville, it all begins with a song. Some songs have become hits time after time. Ever wonder about the writers? If you do, then you'll love Country's Family Reunion, The Songwriters. In the family reunion tradition, the room is filled with some of the best writers Nashville has to offer.
We're the songwriters.
Over the years, these songwriters have filled the charts with their songs, and now we're about to get the real story on those songs from the people who wrote them. They share it all, from the heartbreaks to the hits, and everything in between. Some songs took years to write, while a few took only minutes. It's all here on Country's Family Reunion, The Songwriters.
Oh, ain't we having a good time? Well, we've already found out Jerry Chestnut's got a great sense of humor. Of course, we all knew that from many years back, but he's also got a whole lot of hit songs in his catalog. I bet we could talk you into doing one.
That's good for business, isn't it?
Huh?
That's good for business.
We were talking about Farron Young a while ago. Seeley was talking about him. How did you get your great song 4 in the Morning to Farron?
To Farron? Farron never, I never did pitch songs. You came to my office looking for a hit. Everybody came to me for a hit. Never a B-side or album cut. They're looking for a hit. And once I started having hits, everybody would come running wanting a hit song. And back then, when you record, you look for hit songs. Now they got co-ops and so forth that cut stuff, or write stuff, And I think that's what it is. I was at the BMI Awards the other night, and the one thing I can't figure out is how you've got 2 writers and 6 publishers. I'm serious. I can see 2 publishers and 6 writers, but I don't understand 6 publishers and 2 writers, but that's really happening a lot. Let me say first of all, when I was growing up, I never dreamed of being a songwriter. And I had a friend in Harlan County, Kentucky, and my brother got a Sears Roebuck guitar for Christmas. And they told me, whatever you do, you don't touch that. That's when I decided to be a guitar player. And anyway, I wound up playing guitar and wanting to be a star. This buddy of mine had a record of Zeke Clements and one of Eddie Arnold, and we played them day and night. I wound up inducting Zeke Clements into the Hall of Fame and going to lunch with Eddie Arnold every other day. Years and years later, after wars and everything, But when I was overseas during the Korean War, every time we'd land on these little islands, I'd put a band together. And even on the way over on the troop ships, I entertained troops and played a banjo. I'd tune it up like the last 4 strings on a guitar and play it. And but anyway, when I got back from overseas, while I was there, every night I'd get on the stage, they wanted to hear Wild Side of Life. And I thought, what if you wrote a song like that and Hank Thompson or somebody would record it and play it on the radio? Wonder what it would cost. Anyway, I got this crazy idea of maybe...
It cost about
maybe
$500,000.
Writing a song. So I loved Filipino Baby. Bacopas, you remember?
Yeah.
And so I decided to write the Filipino Waltz. And I wrote, this guy has come back to America, and he's coming back to you across the ocean blue. And I need another line. I said, hair of gold and eyes of blue. A Filipino with blonde hair and blue eyes, that didn't work. So that was the end of my songwriting. Then I went to Florida, and I'd play on weekends and radio and stuff, and I came to Nashville to be a star and play guitar. And I rented a house about a block from Hank Garland. And I'd go over there and play guitar with him, and I figured out my guitar playing wasn't going to work.
No need of that.
And then I talked to Webb Pierce about recording, and he said, son, we don't need no stars. What we need is somebody to write the hits for some stars we've got. So I started trying to write songs, and 10 years later, I started getting songs cut, and everybody started coming to me, and it's just been a roller coaster. I just had something that after 30 years after his death, I had 5 songs released by Elvis, but I just had a song the other day that I'd give up on, put out as an instrumental on Elvis Presley. Do you believe that? He cut a track and the voices and everything and had it all ready to go on The Wonders You Perform, and never got his voice on it. He died. And now after 30 years, they just put it on the end of a CD, instrumental, The Wonders You Perform.
Wow.
Is that crazy? So songs never die. Great songs don't.
And that is a great song, The Wonders You Perform. Oh, wow.
Incredible song. Yeah. Do a little bit of 4 in the morning.
All right. It's 4 in the morning, and once more the dawning just woke up the warning in me. Wishing I'd never met her, knowing if I'd forget her, how much better off she would be. The longer I hold on, the longer this goes on, the harder that it's gonna be. But it's 4 in the morning, and once more the dawning just woke up the warning in me. I never deserved her, God knows when I heard her. That's the last thing that I want to do. She tries, but she can't tell how she feels, but I know too well what she's going through. And if I love her so much, I don't know why I can't do the right thing and just let her be. But it's 4 in the morning, and once more the dawning just woke up the morning in me. Last night I told her, this time it's all over. Making 10 times I've told her goodbye. Last night we broke up. This morning I woke up, and for the 10th time I'm changing my mind. I saw more love in her eyes when I left her than most foolish men will ever see. And it's 4 in the morning, and once more the dawning just woke up the morning in me. It's 4 in the morning, and once more the dawning just woke up the morning in me.
Got to ask you what time of day you wrote that.
I got up at 4 in the morning and looked at my watch and said it's 4 in the morning and started writing, and and I got 2 verses done. There's a good, Felice Bryant told me, more good songs are ruined by people trying to finish them.
Yeah.
For a certain thing, or just to get them done. You know, she said, it has to grow, it has to get better. The second verse has to be stronger than the last. And so I had the verse and the chorus, and couldn't get nothing else that was doing anything for me. So I got on a tractor and started running a disc up on the hill. And when you're driving or something like that, you kind of get a rhythm going. And I wrote that last verse on that tractor. I keep singing it over and over, and this boy was with me. And all at once, I just pulled a pin on this disc and took off trying to get it down. Went down the hill, and he's hollering, "Where are you going?" And I run in the house, and one of the kids or something said, "Is everything all right?" I said, "Everything's fine." And I run in that writing room and got it down. And then you asked me about Fern. I went to the office that day, and at 10 o'clock then, Fern called, and he said, "Hey, I need a hit." And he did it. He never cut without calling me, I don't think. And so I went over to Mercury, and I sang him a song called "If It Feels Good, Do It." And I thought it was just great for him. And he said, "No, I'll get Dudley to cut that. He'll cut you a hit on that." But he said, "That ain't what I'm looking for." He said, "Have you wrote anything else?" And I said, "Yeah, but it's not for you."
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "Hell, you mean it's not for me? You know how Fern this blue." And I said, "Well, it's a waltz. And waltzes sell 1 million records. Every million seller has been a waltz. And you have to go to England and all over the world. You become an international star." And another thing is, I don't think artists like people dancing when they're singing. And so he said, "Well, let me hear it." So anyway, I played him that, about like I did just now. And he said, "I'll get it out of that waltz time." So he got it out of the waltz time. He tried it. I went over Friday when he did it, and he tried it in 4/4. He tried it in Western swing. He tried it blue. He tried everything in the world, nothing. Finally, he said, "Hell, let's just do it the way it is." One take, went on to the next song. He told Hilda later, he said, "If I'd have known that was going to be such a big hit, I could have done it a lot better." She said, "Yeah, you could have run it." But,
Oh, ain't that the truth?
and Dudley did cut the other song in his top 10. Last one he had, I think.
You're sitting next to an old boy that's written a few hit songs in his time. Also worked as a record producer, so you've kind of been on both ends of it. Norro Wilson as the writer who's trying to get the songs cut, and as the producer who they're bringing songs to. You and Buddy Cannon, who's with us in the room today too. What's the difference when you write? Do you sit down and try to write something that you as a producer would want to cut a record on, or do you separate the two?
I don't know when I was writing. I'm not a very good single writer all alone. I think I probably got the ability, but I hate that. I love the camaraderie of writing with another person or 2 more people. That's kind of how my history went. And in my years of writing, I was working for Gallico Music and was a song plugger. And that environment changed my world because I kind of never really thought about writing. But the next thing you know, I'm around George Ritchie, I'm around Billy Sherrill, I'm around Carmel Taylor. And that particular songwriting environment got me interested in going. And I just kind of fell into it, quite honestly. And we would somebody would say a title or come up with something, and we'd just sit there and do it. And sometimes it'd work, and sometimes it wouldn't. And I do believe that every now and then you get a role going, you know, a combination of people or individual. I mean, you just get something happening, and it helps. It goes along for a long time. As a producer, I think I had to learn a little bit of another side of it. You had to listen to what was being played, and it needed to fit that formula, so to speak. I mean, somehow or other, we just did things very natural in the old days. And as I made an earlier comment, we got pretty formulated in what we started to do. It's got to be like this, da-da. But I don't know about knowing for a fact that I know every hit song, but we go back to the earlier comments. I think you do know a hit song when you hear it. And I think the average human being, if they hear 10 songs and one jumps out, it really does jump out. And you know, some of it's instinctive.
Did you know Most Beautiful Girl was a hit?
No, because that was when I was trying to be a star or artist. I never really looked at it as wanting to be a star. I just liked singing. I was an old quartet tenor singer, and I evolved from one thing to the next, and finally ended up on my own working the Golden Nugget for 7 years. I did everything in the world. The circus, I did everything to make a living. So I had plan A. I never knew about a plan B, you know. So when The Beautiful Girls was started, Rory Burke, who everybody in this building knows who that is, he was a national sales and promotion for Smash Records. And I was making records for Smash, bad as it was. And so I went up to his house. I'd recorded a song that he had written. And for a fact, Rory wanted to be a songwriter his entire life. I mean, more than anything. That's what he wanted. That was his plan. And so we'd been out trying to promote My Silly Little Record as I think back on it, and I was sleeping in a little baby room and on a cot, and his old cat was between my feet, and there's a little knock come to the door, and I said, yes. And he opened the door, and there was Rory with a guitar and his wife, and she had a little thing of orange juice, and he had a little cup of coffee, and he said, let's write a song. And I was not interested in writing a song because I had a slight case of alcoholic poisoning. And I just didn't want to do that, you know, and there's a little bit of pounding going on. So he sang the first verse. He had the first verse. I woke up this morning and realized what I'd done, so forth, so on. And which he'd lost his world, you know. And I don't know why I thought, well, what if he went down on the street and was looking for almost anybody to see if they had seen this beautiful girl? I said, what if he walked up to and I said a guy, I think, what if he walked up to this guy and he said, hey, mister, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl in the world? And that was a gift. I was not a songwriter at that point. That was.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I remember when you walked in. I was over at American Studio at 1111, and you walked in one afternoon with that song, and you sat down at that old upright piano that was in Ms. Williams' office, and you sat down and played that song loud enough to where she could hear it, and then you leaned back immediately and said, you know Patsy? And I said, sure, I know her. He said, would you introduce me to her? And that's the girl he married. But she heard that song. He sang it loud enough, and I said, boy, that's a great, great song, man.
And interestingly enough, it laid around 7 years before it actually got something happening with it. Yeah. And I actually did it with Joe Stampley. And Joe Stampley said, I don't want to do that. It's not a country record. That's a pop record. And of course, he's hated it ever since. And we've joked and laughed about it. He just didn't want. I understand that. I understand where he was coming from, and he didn't want to do it. And so then came the time, and Charlie was recording, had behind closed doors, and this song was put in the list for the album, and it made the list, and then he recorded it. And really, I'm not certain that the song would have been released as a single if it hadn't been for our old publisher, Al Gallico, who who called Billy up and said, Billy, I gotta tell you. You know? He said, I got my guy, George Wilson in LA, you know, he's playing the record. And it's gonna be a monster. The phone's lit up right away, you know? And so Billy said, yeah, in his little fetal position over there in his, you know. All of you that know Billy. And another little something interesting here. It was written, Hey, Mister, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl in the world? And he says, what the world is that? Hey, Mister, you can't sing Hey, Mister, you know. And that made that song definitive, really definitive. Because, that's what you want me to sing?
Yeah. What a segue.
Hey, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl in the world? And if you did, was she crying, crying? Hey, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl that walked out on me? Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I need my baby. Oh, won't you tell her that I love her? I woke up this morning, realized what I had done. I stood alone in the cold gray dawn. I knew I'd lost my morning sun. I was wrong and I said some things. Now comes the heartache that the morning brings. I was wrong, I couldn't see. I let my world slip away from me. Say, hey, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl in the world? And if you did, was she crying, crying? Hey, did you happen to see the most beautiful girl that walked out on me? Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I need my baby. Won't you tell her that I love her? If you happen to see the most beautiful girl that walked out on me, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I need my baby. Won't you tell her that I love her?
That is incredible. That is so great.
Thank you very much.
You had that little boy sitting next to you over there singing along. And
I put the Mister in there. I kind of liked it.
how does it sound with the Mister in it?
It sounded all right. I think it worked out a little better.
Norris, now if you'll just follow that up with Pink Dally Roo.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, Bill, before we
brain.
get too far past his story, he was talking about what all he'd done. I'm curious to know what Norrell did in the circus. I've heard jokes.
I was the barker. You know, I wore the tuxedo for Jack Norman. And in the old Olympic days, I introduced him being shot out of the cannon and the horses, equestrian perfection. I mean, had to make a living, you know.
I remember seeing you on stage.
I enjoyed that. It was quite wonderful, really.
Norrell, Jack would always request Norrell do on stage when you opened it up, The Great Pretender.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did a great job. Oh, yes, I'm the Great
Well, that was the
Pretender.
only album I ever made for the record label, was an album of all of those old hits, Only You and The Great Pretender. And I don't know if it was before its time, but we kind of fumbled along. And I was proud of it. You know, it was a simple It was a simple rhythm section and strings done by Cam Mullins. And boy, he wrote some lovely stuff. And I was thrilled with it. Never sold 6 records, but nevertheless, done anyway.
In a room full of songwriters, is Vince Gill a songwriter who also sings or a singer who writes songs?
Well,
You do
for-
both so well. No, I mean, in your own mind.
Well, I'll tell you from, I think from early on that nobody really took my songwriting very seriously. That's because I think my singing and my playing overshadowed it by quite a bit. And in those early days, it should have, you know, because the songs weren't that good. But my determination was such that every time someone would tell me I was a much better singer and guitar player than I was a songwriter, it would make me angry, you know, and it would put a fire in me. Harlan Howard was one of the first people that sat me down and he said, "Kid," he said, you're one of the best singers I've ever heard. I used to go and when I first moved to town and sing all of Harlan's demos for $10 a song and try to pay the rent, and we were great friends, and I'd go over and buy him White Russians after we'd make that $10. But he said, "Kid, you're a great singer and an unbelievable musician. You're a pretty good songwriter." You know, and he kind of, and what I realized, he was trying to impart some wisdom to me and say, that's either you need to work on that or you need to maybe consider the thought of recording other people's songs. And I was so stubborn that I really, if I was going to succeed or fail, I at least wanted it to be kind of on my own terms, you know, and the people that I loved the most were the artists that wrote their own songs. And that guy sitting right across the room was probably the first one, that Guy Clark over there, to really inspire me to want to learn how to write a song. I moved to Los Angeles in late 1976, and the first gig that I had the opportunity to play was at a club there called the Troubadour. In the 70s, it was the Mecca, you know, out there in Southern California. And our band opened for Guy. And that's the night that I met Guy Clark and I met Rodney. And those two guys, I think, were responsible for saying, hey, this songwriting thing is a good thing. You know, that's how it felt to me. And so that kind of started me on my way of trying to learn how to write songs. And I came to town, and once again, you know, no success. And you asked the question earlier, do you know a hit song when you hear it? I would have said, evidently not. I recorded for a lot of years without having one. But once again, just the ability to connect with so many people. Don Schlitz over there was willing to write songs with me in the early days, and it was so funny. We'd write songs, and Don was probably as hot as he'd ever been in those years. And I would always go to the record company and I say, "Hey, I wrote this song with Don Schlitz." And they said, "Well, try again," you know. And I go, "What do you? Well, you only write not so good songs when it's me, you know?" But
you should have let me sing the demo.
That might have worked. But you know, I think through just strictly being stubborn and also being willing to learn to get better, I got better at it, you know, and once again, it finally took the right song at the right time, and then away it went, you know, and I felt proud, you know, that I stuck with it, and so.
What's your favorite song you ever wrote?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe the last one, but I don't know that the success of a song has ever really been the definition of a great song to me. I think that this is a room full of hit songs, but it's also, even more so, it's a room full of great songs. And I don't think all great songs are hit songs. One of my favorite songs that I wrote was a song that I released and never even charted. This was 7 or 8 years ago, and I thought it was one of the best songs that I'd ever written, and I didn't know why it didn't work, but see if I can. You wake up one morning and it's passed you by. You don't know when and you don't know why. feel like an old memory hanging around. Man, you gotta face it, it's a young man's town. You knew this day was coming all along. So why bitch and moan and say they've done you wrong? Just teach them what you know and pass it on down. 'Cause man, you gotta face it, it's a young man's town. It's a young man's town, full of young men's dreams. And all God's children gotta learn to spread their wings. Sometimes you gotta stand back, watch them burn it to the ground. Even though you built it, it's a young man's town. I was just stalling because I can't remember the last verse. Sorry.
It's a great song. Why do you think it didn't connect? I mean, it's so well written.
You know, over the 30 years I've been here, I've heard every excuse, so I could just pick any one of them.
You're right. It'd
You
work,
know?
wouldn't it?
It just, you know, it's a matter of the right song at the right time. I think a lot of people heard that song and thought I had sour grapes because they weren't playing my records so much anymore. And I said, man, you got to listen to that song. That's a song about, you know,
Dreams of the
passing it on
future.
down and
Yeah.
reaching to the next generation and being willing to be gracious about the next one that comes up and has their chance. You know, I never could understand why folks would be critical of the youth coming along. You know, you may like it or you don't like it, but at the same time, you know, if you think back, you came up and you took somebody's spot, and
Absolutely.
and we couldn't keep doing this, you know, if it wasn't for the next bunch to come along and learn what we tried to teach them.
Who was criticizing?
Oh, anybody that wouldn't play it, I guess. I don't know.
go get him.
But you know, it was once again, it was just me trying to be gracious of letting go of so.
Do you think, in retrospect, do you think maybe it was a little bit too much identity with Nashville and not just any town?
Well, I mean, the intent was
I know.
obviously more
Make it
universal.
universal,
but because it was me singing it, then
Yeah, I
the
think that
first
was-
assumption is it's autobiographical. Always he's mad because we're, you know, da 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 da. I said, man, listen to the words. That's not what it's about at all. But
You raised an interesting point. You mentioned Don Schlitz and working with him. Don, can somebody be taught? Go back to the days you were writing with Vince before he had written hits and all. How do you go about teaching somebody to write a song?
Well, it's teaching somebody or teaching Vince are two different things. Yeah, I mean, he came in with so much
A lot of.
knowledge of what worked and what he liked. And that instinct, I think, of what you like is what you ought to sing, what you ought to write. I mean, we all want to write a song that's a hit song. Well, you know, I want to write a song I like, and I want that to be a hit song. And that was what he did, and he had always been spending so much time. The difference between us is, well, one of the differences between us was he was out playing, and he was out picking. He was out singing every night. And I was sitting at a typewriter or sitting at a legal pad day in and day out and working on rhymes to the point where I didn't have to think about rhyming, working on meter and making and trying to get, whether Mr. belongs in the line or not, or, to make sure it worked, to make sure it sounded conversational, making sure that you want to say it in a way so that you don't, everything that's between the lines, you didn't have to say. You said it with the silence between those words. And the question being, can you teach anybody to do that? I'm not sure you can teach anybody to do that, but you can learn how to do that. You got to have the want to. You got to really want to hear a song you haven't heard before, and it's probably going to be about yourself, or something that. And when you look at that, the most personal thing about yourself that you would never really want to tell anybody, and you figure out a way to write that down and sing that to somebody else, they walk away and going like, how does he know that about me? How does he know that's what I'm thinking? Because there's a universal subject. There's only 6 songs. There's only 6 plays. There's only 6 books. You got to find a different way to say it, and say it from your heart and from your mind. I'm not sure you can teach anybody. You can point them in the right direction. But if you've got the want to, if you've got the desire and the stubbornness is, I think, very critical that Vince had, and that I think everybody in this room had, and hopefully still has, to sit down and do that. Yeah, you can learn how to write a hit song. I know that I was very fortunate myself that when I was knocking on doors when I got here, I was thinking, we were talking about the young folks now. Well, I had hair about down to here, and it's 1973, and I was, well, who's that rock and roll kid, or who's he think he is? He's 20 years old. Why is he coming to Nashville? Well, it was near home, and I got here, and the first person to see me, first 2 people to see me, one guy named Buzz Rabin and a guy named Bob McDill. And I remember walking into Jack Music, and the lady out front says, "Anybody listen to songs today?" And this guy comes out with wire rim glasses, and it's Bob McDill. I didn't know who Bob McDill was, any more than I walk into a restaurant and see Nora Wilson sitting there. I don't think there's the most beautiful girl writer. It's like, well, there's somebody eating a steak, And I didn't know who this guy was. I go back and I'm thinking, I'm this guy's big chance in life. I'm 20 years old, right? And he listens to about 10 songs of mine. He kind of likes them, and I'm thinking like, I am your big shot. You just got lucky meeting me, right? And he says, "Well, come in here. I want to play you what I'm doing. We'll put some of your songs down later, but I want to show you what I'm doing." And he says, "It's a small label. It's a friend of mine singing. It's a B-side." And he puts on a 45, and at that time, albums were happening. And I thought, well, it's just a single. It's like, it's not even on an album. And I looked down, it was on a record label called JMI Records. The friend of his was a man named Don Williams. And the song was a song called Amanda. And that was Hello to Don in Nashville. And it was like, okay, this is going to take a while. And for the first couple of years, that was the only person that would see me in town, and he handed it down. He very patiently took the time to listen to songs and be encouraging. I'd go in. I was working as a computer operator, an all-night computer operator over at Vanderbilt, and I'd get up at 10 o'clock in the morning and go knock on doors. And every once in a while, I'd get fed up, and I was going to go back to North Carolina, and I'd go in and say, "Well, I'm going to go back." And he said, "Well, you could do that, but you'll never know." Never know what? Well, you never know if you could have done it or not. Okay. He said, there's good news and bad news. 99% of the money, or cuts, whatever, you get from 1% of the people. That's the bad news. And the good news is there's a whole lot of room in that 1%. And when I know most people in this room came to town, it was a situation that if you hung around long enough, and if you worked hard enough, and if you tried to learn and listen, and you were polite, and you had a little bit of something, you can get a shot. I eventually got a shot.
Do us a great Don Schlitz song.
Wow.
I realize you brought your entire catalog with you
I
there.
didn't bring the entire catalog. I brought. I don't know what I could play for you, Bill. What you looking for? I'll play you a song. We were talking about when you're looking for a hit. Darn.
What's your favorite
That's the
song?
wrong book. My favorite song. I'm kind of like Vince says his favorite song is the last one. I think Buffy St. Marie once said, when they asked what her favorite song was, she said the next one.
Yeah.
You know, I like the one that I'm working on at home right now. You know, that's pretty cool. This is.
I love this.
This is a song that I actually, Jerry was talking about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up one morning, and once you have spent all that time trying to learn how to rhyme and trying to learn how to meter and trying to learn how to say things real simple and watching all of my heroes that are in this room. Well, once you get an idea, sometimes you wake up and it's all right there. I woke up one morning and the chorus of this song was boom, right in my head. And most of the time, when I'd wake up with an idea, I'd think, oh, that is so good, I'll remember that. And then you wake up a couple hours later and
Gone.
yeah, you're thinking like, what was that idea? I was always on my mind. No, it wasn't that. That's like, oh, and so you this one I went over and wrote down. Thank goodness. I wrote this chorus down, and a couple hours later, a man I'd been working with for a long time named Paul Overstreet, and I met at the office, and God bless you, Angela.
Bless somebody.
And Paul heard me singing this, and he says, I like that. I said, yeah, but I don't have a melody. I don't know what it's going to be. He said, well, I kind of like what you're playing. He knew how to find a melody in what I played. So, you gonna play guitar?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Sure.
I brought the band. It's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you can light up the dark. Try as I may, I could never explain what I hear when you don't say a thing. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes, says you'll never leave me. A touch of your hand says you'll catch me if ever I fall. You say it best when you say nothing at all. All day long I can hear people talking out loud. But when you hold me near, you drown out the crowd. Oh, Mr. Webster could never define what's being said between your heart and mine. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes, says you'll never leave me. A touch of your hand says you'll catch me if ever I fall. Oh, you say it best when you say nothing at all. Oh, you say it best when you say nothing.
you say something about this,
I held that catalog.
waking up at
catalog
4 in the
my hand
morning?
there for a few minutes.
I did that every morning. That's when I wrote. And I know this for me, and it may be for a lot of other people that they don't realize. But when you've worked all day and done anything or just walked around, your back is tired. And it don't feel like going out and doing a lot. And it's not capable of doing it. I think the mind is the same way. I think once you think all day and you got your head full of this and that and what somebody else said and all this, I think your mind is still working. But when you start talking about creating and about God filling the air full of songs, hits, and giving a few people the talent to reach out and get them, as Willie Nelson said, I think you can reach out there and get them a lot better when your mind is clear and rested.
Oh, yeah.
And a crazy thing to prove this, and the last thing I want to do is boast. But the thing that really got me going was when I woke up and I had 5 songs in the Billboard chart and 3 in the top 10, and I knew then I was a writer. But I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of hit songs, you know. But I have written a lot of songs after 10 o'clock in the morning. Some of them are greatly written, they're crafted beautiful, they're good ideas, they're everything, but I ain't never wrote a hit after 10 o'clock in the morning, ever. No way. Every hit I ever wrote was at 4 or 5 o'clock. And another thing, you're not bothered with co-writers. You're not.
They are a hindrance, aren't they?
I've had 2 co-writers in my life. Nobody gets up and comes over at 4 o'clock in the morning and wants to write.
Unless you're sleeping with them, I reckon.
Yeah.
One of the things that McDill taught me was that he asked me at one point, I was about 22 years old, 23 years old. He said, how many songs do you write a year? I said, about 10. He said, well, when do you write? I said, well, all different times of day, whenever it hits me. He says, those are the ones you get for free. He says, you need to write write a song a week. Make sure you're always writing. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, well, everybody gets 10 if you pay any attention at all. The trick is to write 40 other songs that people might want to sing. So try and write 50 a year. And I've always held on to that thought because I get those 10 a year. But usually my favorite song, and the only time I ever feel like a songwriter, because I don't feel like a songwriter playing a song I've already written, is when I'm writing one. If I've got something working in my head, I feel like a songwriter right then. But other than that, I'm just a really good-looking guy.
I want to say something about this man. We've co-written numerous songs, and I would be driving into Nashville, and I'd show up at his office about 10:30, and we'd sit down, and he'd go, hey, you want to hear what I just wrote? It's like he wrote a song. He already got to the office early, and he wrote a song. And it was like, and we'd kick the day off by listening to what he had already written, and such a work ethic, and I think that's a huge deal. Also, it's just the way your brain works. I mean, you've got one of those noodles that noodles a lot, but
It doesn't shut up much.
yeah. But why? But it's so smart. You're capturing it. You're writing it down, and it would be great stuff,
Sometimes some very gifted and talented writers are lazy.
That's the damn truth.
And
Occasionally.
well, that's true. The people with the work ethic. Well, you're one with the work ethic, buddy. Here you are after
That's
all
right.
this time, still writing
That's right.
hits. And every now and then, nobody's calling me up that much. Go, you want to write? Well, I'm scared to death of even thinking about it because my golf swing is gone. At this point, I mean, you get to a place you write now. As I said, I write with others, but you get to a place where you're doing it. And you get used to doing it, and you get better, and you get better, and you get better, and you get better. And I don't know, it'd be a chore for me to try to do that at this point.
Larry Cordell, what time of day did you write Murder on Music Row?
Well, let's see. It was in the morning. It wasn't 4 o'clock, but it was in the morning. I was going to go make a bluegrass record with my band, Lonesome Standard Time, and I kind of I hadn't made a record in a long time, and I had the songs picked out that I thought was going to be on it. And my old buddy Larry Shell called me one day, and he said, you know how he is. He's, son, I've got a great song. I could see him jumping over the phone, you know. He said, I've got a great song idea for us. And I said, well, man, I don't know. I wasn't really writing much. He said, well, listen to this. He said, it's called, I said, what's it called, I guess? And he said, it's called Murder on Music Row. I said, oh, geez, about killing country music? He said, yeah, that's what it's about. So I said, well, next time we could get together, which was just a couple of days, I went to town and met him. We had a little office over there on 18th, you remember, Leslie. And it's a Vanderbilt parking lot or something now. But I went in there, and he just came back out of his office back into mine, and we wrote the thing in a couple of hours, I guess, and put it on a piece of tape. I never thought any more about it. But I told somebody in an interview that somebody asked me, so how long did it take y'all to write that? And I said, I don't know, a couple of hours. And Larry said, well, no, about 10 years. He said, that's how long we've been talking about it. He said, we just didn't have the right words, you know, to put up. And I think it was probably the truth, you know, and I wasn't even going to record it for this stuff because didn't have any bluegrass thing about it. And the last night, we cut a record like in 2 nights, and the last night of the thing, I had played this thing at the Bluebird, which is, I'm sure everybody in here knows what it is. We just working out there one night, and I played it out there, you know. When I got to the hook the first time, the whole roof come off that place. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So we working over at Station Inn. I said, boys, let me try this song right here and see what happens in here. Same thing. So when we got in, was doing the record the last night of it, I kind of really got in the spirit of it and said, you know, let's record this thing. And I got to thinking about what the album cover and stuff might look like, you know, if we called it that. And we just recorded it. I put it on a CD and didn't have any names or phone numbers or anything on it. I got some crime scene tape off of a police officer over at the Longhorn, and we put it in an 8x10 envelope and carried it over to a guy named Carl P. Mayfield, who was a disc jockey in town. And the first day, I guess, that he came back from where he was at, he started playing the thing. And my phone, the first time rang, it was Kim Fox. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. She said, oh my God, they're playing your song, that song you played me, you know. And he told me the first day he played it 8 times. His show went from 6 to 10. He told me he played it every 30 minutes. And he said the phone just never did quit ringing. So I guess Irv Woolsey, who is George Strait's manager, name dropper, he was coming to town, I guess, so the tale goes, and heard it and decided he'd carry it to Strait. And Strait said, oh, yeah, you know, I guess, and I'll call Alan Jackson.
That's the rest of the story. Lay a little bit of it on us.
Okay.
One of the more controversial songs of the last few years.
Nobody saw him running from 16th Avenue. They never found a fingerprint of the weapon that was used. But someone killed country music, cut out its heart and soul. They got away with murder down on Music Row. The almighty dollar and the lust for worldwide fame slowly killed tradition, and for that someone should swing. Oh, and they all say not guilty, but the evidence will show that murder was committed down on Music Row. For the steel guitars no longer cry, and you can't hear fiddles play, with drums and rock and roll guitars turned all up in your face. And old Hank wouldn't have a chance on today's radio since they committed murder down on Music Row. Jimmy. Little sad part to it now here. They thought no one would miss it once it was dead and gone. They said no one would buy their old drinking and cheating song. Hey, there ain't no justice in it, and the hard facts are cold. You know, there's been an awful murder down on Music Row. For the steel guitars no longer cry, and you can't hear fiddles play with drums and rock and roll guitars turned all up in your face. And the hag wouldn't have a chance on today's radio since they committed murder down on Music Row. Why they did tell the possum to pack up and go back home. There's been an awful murder down on Music Row.
Thank you. Great job, Larry. We got just a couple of minutes before we need to take a break. Did you realize that that song was going to be controversial? Or did you care?
Well, we didn't really care because we never, once we recorded the thing, we never thought anybody. Well, I mean, I don't mean it hardly like I said it, I guess. We never thought anybody would record the thing. I mean, I told Larry, I said, well, there it is. I had a little cassette deck. It had one little button on it. Still my favorite recording machine. You mashed it down and we recorded it just about like that, and I said, well, there it is, whatever, and I said, I don't know what we'd ever do with it. And he said, well, Hoss, I'll tell you what we'll do with it. He said, that's what they'll remember me and you for. And I said, I don't know, I just started being shell, I thought, I can tell you what they'll do, they'll remember us for it. God bless him, I love him. But we didn't think about that. We just wrote the thing down because kind of music had changed a lot. And a lot of people, I think, thought that, oh man, these guys don't like nothing else, they've got to have. I mean, hey, I do love country music. I love everything about it. There ain't one thing I don't like about it, but I like other things too. I just thought that they was crowding real country songs off of country radio, and they'd kind of took the name of it, but they didn't have any part of it that I recognized as being that anymore.
And
because
you're right.
all these guys' songs around here have got all these great stories to them, and all at once it became about just whatever the groove was, until the stories was kind of, you still heard great ones, you still do right now, but there's one out of every 10 or something, I missed that. I kind of missed all that, so no, I didn't care if it's controversial or not. I never dreamed that somebody would try to record the song. I mean, it won Song of the Year, so, and by the way, it was not a single. That was not a single on George Strait and Alan Jackson. A lot of people think that was this monstrous thing, and it was a hit with people, but as everybody in this room knows, unless it's in one of them, well, only one book now, there used to be two, used to be about 4, but unless it's in the top 10 of one of them 2 books, it ain't no hit with who's going to pay you the money. whatsoever. So we were kind of surprised that it was nominated for Song of the Year 2 years, you know, in 2000 and in 2001. I couldn't imagine how that all came about. So while the industry, a lot of people, as you know, in the industry kind of took sides immediately. There was some says, oh man, them guys, that's all they want to do is grumble and go on. And then there was another side that said, you know, I've been thinking that a long time myself. When they voted for the thing, Larry Shell, the co-writer, myself, or Randy Harrell, who owned a piece of the publishing on it, none of us belonged to the CMA at the time. We couldn't even vote for it. We didn't electioneer for it. We didn't do nothing. It just won, you know. So we didn't have anything politically to do with it whatsoever. So evidently, somebody liked it, whether it was in one of the books or not. It won the Song of the Year thing. So we're proud of it.
It needed to be said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what Jones said? Well, I was going to do that, and the next thing I know, they took a George Strait had it. And you know, Nancy said, well, George just getting back on the radio, and they didn't think they might ought to do that. But, which is all right. I mean, I can totally see that, but you know, I saw him on TV, he said, oh, I was going to do it, and next thing I know, they give it to George Strait.
That song sort of depicts people's choice.
Yeah. Good said. Well said.
You know, I just saw the People's Choice the other night, and you'd be surprised who won, who the people like.
Yeah.
Sort of like that health care bill. You know,
Talking about old songs coming back to life, I had 7 releases by George Jones this week.
There you go.
The Music Core catalog is out of court, and the Beyer family has put a big thing together with every bit of it, every recording that was made on Music Core, and they've remastered it and put it out in the most beautiful box set you ever seen.
Yeah,
And I had 7 songs in it I never dreamed would ever be put out.
Well, it's like you said, songs.
Well,
I don't
these
think
songs don't
ever
die.
You know, they just
I've
they get
had
buried
some
in
that
these
die.
catalogs. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of them.
I had some I killed.
But I think
some born dead.
I think they do live a long time in these catalogs if anybody digs around.
But what's happening right now is stuff on the internet.
Wish I'd killed.
They're pulling these things out. Coal miner's daughter just went gold after all this time because it just come out on CDs.
Yeah.
Tammy
Hey,
Wynette's Greatest Hits Volume 2, in case anybody's in these things. George Jones, 50 Years. All this stuff is happening. And Billboard even tells you that records are not selling that much. Graceland is selling more records than any 3 record stores in America. But the internet's where it's selling.
Everything's happening through the web.
But you got to get on these things and make the publisher aware of it, because a lot of them are not.
They're not. Hey, can I say one thing? Don was talking about Bob McDill a minute ago. Before I forget it, when I first come to town, Bob was writing at Welk, you know, and I just kind of knew his name. And then one day he had like I was down here. I was still living in Kentucky, and he had like 4 of the top 5 songs had his name on it. And somebody pointed that out to me, you know. And I was watching this guy. And one evening I was in there real late. He would always leave at 5 o'clock. I have no idea why he was still around there. It was about 6. There was nobody in the office but me and him and one of the girls up front. And he come by my room, and I was trying to learn how to write songs. Or the little room they'd give me, it wasn't mine. I was sitting back there, and he stopped in my doorway. He had them big cigars, you know, he used to smoke. And he said, that was a really pretty melody. And I said, yeah, man, I can't get it right. What I was hoping was I'll come in there and finish that for you and put my name on it. But my hands are shaking. I thought, I'm going to ask this guy. I'm going to ask him. I said, is there anything I never had a #1 record, you know, but I didn't know anything about what I was doing. It's just because I knew the guy. I said, man, is there anything you can tell me about this, you know? He said, yeah, there's something I can tell you. I thought, oh, God, he's going to tell me I ain't done all that. I said, well, please do, because I could use all the help I could get. He said, work hard and save your money. Turned around and left.
That's him.
And I thought, man, it was a long time. I thought, oh, I had a lot of four-letter words I was running through my mind. But you know what? Believe it or not, it's the best advice I believe I ever got in the music business. Because it took me 5 or 6 or 10 years or something to figure out what he meant, and he meant just that. Work hard and save your money when you make any, because it'll be a long time before you make any more, maybe.
But would anybody in this room, if you were told now that you cannot make a penny ever off of writing a song, would y'all still have written songs?
Yeah.
Probably so.
You didn't have any choice, did
It's
you?
the only world we
If I
had.
could afford to.
You didn't have any
got 'em
choice.
played.
You were going to write them whether you were on the tractor
Sure.
or whether, you're working in the store or serving food or whatever. You were going to write some songs. It didn't matter whether you were still at the radio station and played other people's records. If you didn't make a penny off of it, you were going to write it.
Pay
I'll
them.
never make a dime playing golf, but I still play.
Me too, and mine doesn't get any better.